Our disability is our greatest strength. It gives us a supervision to see the issues facing humanity from a more inclusive perspective and the grit to fight back against all odds. Welcome to Super Adaptables, the More Than Walking Video podcast discussion. Welcome everyone to Super Adaptables, the podcast where people of all abilities gather to discuss pressing issues that affect the disability community and their implications for the world at large. We are your hosts. I am Corey Feasley, C4 complete quadriplegic since 2005.
And I am Jonathan Sigworth, C7 complete quadriplegic since 2006, both of us hailing from the great state of Connecticut.
We are recording this on Thursday, the 12th of September, and in a little bit, we'll be discussing with some amazing fellow Super Adaptables about Paralympians competing for gold and justice.
Now, sports are entertaining and important, and as we root for our favorite team or athlete, it's inspiring to watch individuals who have dedicated time to perfecting their craft, have a steadfast focus, and are positively impacting in communities worldwide.
I couldn't agree more, John. Did you know that in 1948, the International Wheelchair Games were the first held in London, England, for British World War II veterans with a spinal cord injury? The founder, Sir Ludwig Guttmann, was a neurologist who fled Nazi Germany and believed that being involved in sports was a great way to rehabilitate. What began as a form of therapy became what is now known as the Paralympics. And in 2020, the Summer Paralympics had over 4,500 athletes participate from 163 countries.
That is amazing, Corey. And today, the Paralympics presents us with the world's best differently abled athletes and opportunities to question how people with disabilities are treated back home. Athletics has a way of bringing issues of justice, equity, and inclusion to the forefront. Whether you're a casual observer, a diehard sports enthusiast, or a Paralympian yourself, none of us are just bystanders.
So let's talk about it. But before we do, we want to emphasize that our goal for these conversations is to make us think critically and for us all to leave with a newfound sense of belonging in a world where we have more things in common than we do different.
Now, Corey, before my injury, I and several of my friends were into unicycling, and I mean of the extreme nature. Though we didn't compete on a global stage, we challenged the bounds of what was possible and did it all with the effort and a singular wheel power, no pun intended. But Corey, how about you? Do you ever do any sports?
Yes, in fact, I did. I played basketball throughout high school. I also boxed out of a local gym in our town. And I rap, so as an MC, we consider that a verbally competitive sport. In addition to that, I and my friends participated in what I've dubbed as street gymnastics. It's like way before what we knew parkour to be or free running was we always pushed the boundaries of flipping, whether that meant doing backflips off of walls, tumbling in the grass, or transitioning from one obstacle to the next. We made sport out of it. And with that, we want to welcome the other super adaptables with us today. And as we call on you, say hello, your name, where you're calling in from, your disability, and briefly, what sports or competitive activity have you ever been involved in with or without a disability? And Brandon, how about you?
Hi, my name's Brandon. I am 39. I am from Denver, Colorado. I am a C6, C7 complete from an automobile accident in 2017. And sports, I wouldn't say like naturally gifted, but I was pretty much any sport I picked up when I was growing up, I was just good at it, seemed like. I played football for a lot of years, but my main sport was I was in very competitive baseball leagues all the time growing up until I was 15 and I destroyed my arm on the mound.
Wow, that's cool. So I take it you're a pitcher.
I was, yes, pitcher and outfield.
Nice, nice, nice. Harley, how about yourself?
I'm Harley. I'm calling from Paris, Texas. I'm a C7 incomplete quadriplegic from a diving accident on my 19th birthday in 1994. Before my accident, I was a country kid, so anything I thought I could do, I would do. I did cliff climbing without equipment. I did swimming nonstop. I actually joined the local swim team in town, and I was nicknamed Skeeter because I'd like just scoot across the top of the water. I did horseback riding. I wanted to join rodeo, but never got that far. So I did a lot of kamikaze riding with my horse. What else did I do? Swimming, horses, hiking, camping. Loved roller coasters. Pretty much anything adrenaline based, count me in.
Wow, that sounds awesome. Every time I watch like horse races or jockeys, I'm just like, man, you have to have a lot of nerve to, kind of communicate with this animal, right? And this oneness, whether you're, doing jumps or you're just racing, um, like competitively like that, that there's got to be a lot of athleticism just to hold on tight. So that's cool. Bit of an equestrian there. You know what I
Yes,
mean? Nice.
I also I was mostly did Western, but I also did the English style of riding. So I jumped horses. I did barrel racing. That was my favorite. But pretty much anything that we could do, we did. We went trail riding. Back in the 80s, there was this movie called Man from Snowy River where he was running his horse down the cliff or very steep hill. And well, I lived in the hills. I tried it, bruised my kidneys, but it was worth it. It was fun.
Mm. Wow, that is something. All right, Tara.
I am Tahira. My injury is C4, C5, incomplete since 2007. I live in Oklahoma City, but I am from Chicago. And I was injured playing roller derby. And that was really the only sport I did.
Every time I see people doing roller derby, I'm like, do you really piece it up at the end of catching like an elbow or getting like dropped? Like, is it all friendly or do you kind of like walk away, kind of like, yo, like watch next time what's gonna happen to you?
Sometimes it's really friendly and sometimes it's not. It does depend on who you're playing, definitely. But I think most of it's pretty friendly, I would say in general.
Nice, nice, nice. Mark.
I'm Mark. I live in South Carolina. I'm a C7 complete quad since 1985. I grew up playing baseball and football from grade school all the way through high school. Loved doing that. And then probably 5 years after my injury, I moved to moved from West Virginia, where I grew up, to South Carolina, and then I started playing wheelchair basketball and rugby and water skiing, snow skiing, kayaking, hunting and fishing, and adaptive surfing. That's my, y'all have heard me say that before. That's my jam now. It's my healthiest addiction.
Well, sir, that's a nice drug of choice and
Indeed.
whatnot. So, like, is somebody pulling your board, or like how does it kind of work?
No, you ride a beach chair down into the water, and you get into about almost waist deep water, and then you scoot over onto your board or get picked up and put on your board, and you lay down on your belly, and then they've got people that get you through the breakers by dragging your board for you, and you can paddle a little bit, but it's too hard to get out by yourself. So then you get out to deep water, and they turn you around and let you know when there's a good wave coming, and they shove you out in front of it and say good luck.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That
It
that
is a
that
blast.
definitely takes some endurance there. But thank you guys for um, sharing, your history with athletics. You know what I mean? It's very important. And um I don't know how many of you have uh been tuning in or had the opportunity to watch the Paralympics go on, or if you watch it in general when it happens. But man, I tell you, there are some athletes that perform stuff that I was like, wow, I don't know if I got the gall to do some of that stuff. Like, for example, there's one gentleman, he's from Brazil, and when he walked out to the platform to, he's competitively swimming against people, he doesn't have any arms, right? I'm like, I have to watch it because I need to know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And like I was like, admittedly, like in awe. I'm just like, I how's that going to go? This guy was beating people by, I don't even know what to compare. If you're racing, you say by a car length. If you're running, you may say like person was ahead of five runners. This guy was in front of all the swimmers. No arms at all, just using the back of his legs like a flipper. And I was just amazed by that because he's been doing that obviously for a while and fearless at it. And I think that when we watch sports, it's one thing to be entertained by it, but you can take so much from it by realizing that, man, athletes, whether they're disabled or not, have so much grit and determination to be successful in the things that they have put their blood, sweat, and tears behind. And so with that, we're going to lead into question one. So the motto of the Paralympics is the spirit of movement, right? It was changed in 2004 to represent the competitive nature of the athletes involved and to strive to reach their full potential. So using a sports analogy, what events would you use to compare how you compete daily with the challenges of your particular disability? What areas of your life do you think you have earned gold, silver, or bronze concerning your disability?
Now, this is a great question, and just to comment, one, Mark, adaptive surfing sounds kind of like the glorified version of, and perhaps a safer version of getting in a barrel and going over Niagara Falls. Um, and two, fish don't got arms, so that's awesome. But sometimes we forget, maybe, or I guess the able-bodied world forgets that, wow, yeah, you really don't need a lot of our appendages to do some amazing things when you look at what's possible. The assumptions that there's only one way to do. And so yeah, so when I was a unicyclist, I would use unicycling analogies for everything. My spiritual life, my educational life, everything was related to the one wheel, one way kind of thing. But you know, in addition to unicycling, I was after my injury, I got involved in wheelchair rugby for a time, as well as adaptive cycling. And so for me, I have those three areas that I can use for analogies. And unicycling really helped me with my balance physically during rehab, being paralyzed below my arms, and all of a sudden having to manage and move everything just with my shoulders and head and limited arm function. So that was very much like unicycling. But and with rugby, you learn that you just have to smash into your opponent. And uh, when you're traveling for games on the weekends, and it's your first time traveling with teammates, and you're newly injured, and you're like learning how to do things without the help of your parents and your medical supplies, it really is just kind of throwing yourself at the problems and figuring out how not to get tipped over in the process. And when you do fall over, figuring out how to get back up. So I guess I could use that as an analogy as well. But even then, I would give myself maybe a gold in goal make, like, I don't know, ambition. Like I've never thought that I couldn't do something after my career or whatnot. But in terms of like health and fitness and timeliness, that has maybe timeliness. That's the bronze. It's probably gonna stick with me for the rest of my life. But anyway, would love to hear what you guys think about this question as well. And Brandon, let's start with you.
So wheelchair rugby kind of really, I don't know, saved my mind frame. I've never done it. I've only watched it. But like when I was first injured, the rehab facility or the long-term care facility I was at first never did any type of range of motion or anything like that. So by the time I got to Craig Hospital, my arms were really, really contorted and I couldn't move. They told me when I was originally injured, I'd never move my arms again anyway. I'd be on a ventilator forever. And then I was on a sip and puff wheelchair to begin with. And I went to the gym at Craig, and the wheelchair guys were training and practicing. And somebody that was a C6, C7, same as I am, came up to me and he was pushing his own wheelchair. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And it made, I before I left Craig, I was able to push a wheelchair, not very far, not very fast. So that's my silver or bronze medal. But the gold medal is because I've never given up, and I've got full mobility on my arms. If you put me in a manual chair, I'm going to get across the house eventually, but I'm going to do it without anybody's help. So, I mean, that's my gold medal, is just never giving up, and I never will. I will continue to fight for myself and for others. So,
Yeah, that's pretty cool, you know what I mean? And kudos to you guys and anybody that's, participated in wheelchair rugby that'll be listening in and what have you. To me, I think you guys are nuts. You know what I mean? Like in a good way. I remember watching a guy do wheelchair rugby, and I'm like, yo, you're slamming into the person. I'm always thinking about like, what if you lose a finger? Like what kind of cushion is that Rojo? Like, 5.0? Like, you got to have pressure ulcers. You know what I mean? You're falling all over the place. Me, I'm gonna stay safe. I'm gonna stay by the bleachers and be real chill about it. So, I really admire people who aren't afraid to just go hard, literally, in a sport that you can really risk getting yourself further injured, but you putting it all on the line. I think that's pretty cool. For me, I would say I think my I've become more assertive because of my injury, whereas before, like, I never been afraid to speak my mind, but I speak my mind with, I guess, more intentionality so that I can advocate for my needs and try to keep the people around me abreast to what's happening so that they don't panic. Sometimes I've had people who have had to, transfer me because I'm a high quad, and they're sweating profusely. One lady cried. She was so nervous to transfer me, and she's the caregiver, right? And I'm up there, suspended 7, 8 feet in the air. And I'm like, no, it's all right. It's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? So that ability to be able to have a conversation with people, even when I'm the one who, quote unquote, looks like he's disadvantaged, I would definitely say that's a goal for me. I would say, silver is just all areas where I don't feel like I know enough and I can still continue to improve on and not get so frustrated when I can't figure it out in the moment. And sometimes I like obsessively try to get it done, and my wife is like, "Yo, dude, like go to bed. It's midnight. You've been in your chair like 12 hours. Like, yo, it'll be there tomorrow." You know what I mean? So I think I need to be able to chill on that. And like bronze, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of things just kind of like, man, I think as I get older, the changes in my body, how to anticipate them a little bit more as I change, and just make sure my care is tip top for the remainder of my life, or however long, I'm gonna be in this wheelchair. But Mark, how about yourself? Where would you rank yourself on the podium of your disability as far as medals are concerned?
The whole reason I got started with anything, some of the athletic stuff was it just looked like fun, and it fed my competitive spirit, and it was another way of getting out there and being active, staying in shape somewhat, meeting new people. I was married, just recently married. I was working. I was, just looking for something else to do on, on the weekends, and and it was just a lot of fun. So I don't know, and now some of my current job, I work for a Center for Independent Living, and some of my current job is peer support, and I'm a peer support person with the Spinal Cord Injury Association and all that. So it's allowed me to communicate with people sometimes that think the world's come to an end, and kind of talk about, well, there's still some things you might want to try and find that you enjoy and all that. And for the basketball team, even though I wasn't much of a player, I was still sort of a captain of the team because it was run by a nonprofit here in town, and I was on the board of directors of that. And so I kind of made sure the money was always coming, and we could always find a coach, and We would host a tournament once in a while and kept all that going. So maybe that was the gold, developing some leadership skills. Yeah.
And I think
Go ahead. Yeah.
sounds to me like you win gold all around, Mark. I mean, having someone like you who's involved in such a different variety of sports, not just one, but experience in several really makes a difference for people who are newly injured. I mean, I was so blessed to just get introduced to wheelchair rugby when I was in the hospital, and it's years later that with a lot of peer mentoring that I'm doing, like, most people don't get that opportunity, and it's incredible that you're able to give that to them. And I want to pass it to Hira. How would you use sports to compare with the challenges of your particular disability, and how would you rank your life?
Well, I just got back into OT today, so I haven't been so great at that recently. I've been good about I have a stander and I get into that usually 4 days a week, but I haven't been doing OT and all that upper body stuff that I need so badly. But I think as much as anything of trying to be of service to others with peer mentoring and through my job and I think for people also disabled or not disabled, I try and encourage people to do things like here in Oklahoma City, most people drive everywhere, but there are people who can't drive, who either can't afford a vehicle or because of their disability. And I try and encourage people to take use the bus system and not just never go out unless they have a ride because they can't drive. And I have a neighbor, I took the bus with her one day to church. She finally got on the bus and now she takes it everywhere. She takes it to Walmart and to church and all that shopping. So I just try and encourage people. I would say that's probably been the best part of my life has been trying to help challenge others to do things they don't normally do things that will help them and then also with the peer mentoring. That's been a pretty good area. Haven't done it as much since COVID, but now getting back into it. So I would say those are the things that I've been doing the most competitively, I suppose.
That's nice. And I would just want to go back to as far as like for me, like with the analogies are concerned, basketball definitely because in my household, I mean, there's only four of us, but got to work for the team. Sometimes you got to pass the ball, which is like my care and the things that I need help with to other teammates so they can use their specific position to help out, whether that's my son getting me in and out my other of the car, my other son getting me a water bottle, my wife getting me something, or I'm pushing Amazon packages to their respective rooms so people can open it up. Everybody has a role on the team. But I like what you said about transportation, about being competitive towards it and getting people to feel comfortable and safe by taking, the bus or taking an accessible a taxi or some form of fashion to able to get around. I do want to pass this over to somebody that just joined us. Justina, I hope you can hear us. Justina is she's Miss Wheelchair Louisiana. Currently, she just competed for Miss Wheelchair USA last week, and she also is heavily involved in getting transportation services open to be more accessible in her place. So, Justina, you're joining us now. If you could introduce yourself, tell us where you're calling from, and answer question one about, as far as sports or, anything you've been competitive and where would you rank that?
Um, if I had to compare my disability to a sport, I would say baseball because you start out at the plate and you could never know how far your ball go and how far you will go chasing that ball depending on the type of motivation and spirit that you have in order to do, in order to develop over time with your injury. I have a spinal cord injury. Um, basically, I have a spinal cord injury, incomplete. C5, C4. And what I do is, with my nonprofit, I get as many resources as I can, and we host sometimes support group meetings, outreach programs, and we give that out to the community, not only the individual who needs it or may be afraid to speak about asking for the assistance of it, but we'll get it to their family member or a loved one, caregivers. But yeah, it's not an easy task, but you just gotta keep pushing through and fighting for what's right. And what medal I will be, I want to say, I want to be a gold medal. I'm gonna call myself a gold medal.
Yeah, it's kind of a false choice. We all want that gold medal. So Harley, we want to get your final thoughts on question one before we hop over to question two.
Uh, I'd give myself a gold medal in tenacity and resilience because since my accident, I mean, I went through a dark time, of course, but I mean, after that, it's like, who am I? What do I got? And let's go for it. And that's when I started looking at it's not about what I've lost, but it's about what I still have and what I can do with it. So since my accident, I've taken my chair to the skate park. I've gone through trails. I've done modeling. Hearing Justina talk about the Ms. Wheelchair thing, or I think it was Corey that spoke about it, but I did Ms. Wheelchair Washington, USA back in 2017. So, I mean, I've done stage acting, small time, but I mean, still, I was doing training for commercial acting and stuff. And I'd compare life to like a rodeo. It's just get on, hang on, and go for it. I'm just a nonstop type of person. It's like, okay, I've done one thing. What's next? All right, accomplished. What's next? And it's just, I don't know if it's my ADHD or what, but it's just to me, life is a big old theme park. You have one roller coaster, ride's done, go to the next one.
I like that. Yeah, rodeo. It's another crazy, crazy sport. Um, again, I had the opportunity to ride a mechanical bull one time, and yeah, I was thrown off very, very quickly. What have you? So, kudos, shout out to all the rodeo clowns and people riding bulls out there. Do your thing. But now that's very interesting. Everyone's perspective on what kind of sport and how that you can compare what athletes are doing on and off the field to the things that we're all experiencing on a different level. And yeah, it's cool to be, biased. You want to compete for the goal because no matter if we have a disability or not, like we all want to achieve some version of the highest point of ourselves that we can, both physically, mentally, all of the above and all across the board. So that's pretty cool. So I'm all down for that.
Hey, Super Adaptables. We're in another election cycle in the US, and with so many issues at stake on the ballot, a person can easily lose sight of what they're voting for.
That's why there's ballotpedia.org. It's like an encyclopedia for American politics. You can look up trustworthy, unbiased information on past and present elections, from your local municipalities up to the presidency, to find out where candidates stand in terms of their policy position.
So, if you want to know what's going on in today's political world, check out ballotpedia.org and stay informed.
Democracy is important, but ask yourself, what would it be without the people? Every 4 years, the political season opens up and millions of citizens come out to vote.
Your vote matters, but in order to exercise that right, you have to do one thing first, and that's register.
Vote.gov is the official website of the U.S. government, where you can find a comprehensive guide on what you need to know and do if you want to make your voice heard. So don't wait any longer. Visit vote.gov today to register. So question 2. So equity is the race we're all running in. For people and persons with disabilities, this is not easy. It's not an easy feat at all. And the finish line can seem so far away. Many athletes come from countries where people's human rights are being violated. Some countries don't allow women to be involved in sports or allow athletes to compete against others with amputations to participate in events while butchering the citizens. As a viewer or participant in the Paralympics, whose responsibility is to speak out against the atrocities happening in participating countries, especially your own?
No, I think this is a really powerful question, Corey. And as we discussed, and I'm sure you'll mention it, this is an issue that comes up every single time there's a major, global sporting event. And I think one reason it does is because there's no getting away from it, right? Like people with disabilities coming from every corner of the planet, often being one of the most marginalized, one of the most victimized groups. And here we are. This is a relatively new thing, us being kind of like front and center stage for a good week and a half or so. And that's going to raise some of these issues to the front, to the fore. I was reading on Monday and saw during the Paralympics, about Fadi Al-Deeb, who became paralyzed at age 17 after being shot by Israeli troops in 2001, eventually migrated to France. And then last year, as he was training to compete in shot put, he learned that his brother and two nephews were killed during the current Gaza conflict. And for the last 2 weeks, Al Deep represented 11 million Palestinians at the Games as the sole Palestinian Paralympian, right? So the question is, why was he the only one? And two, why is it that we put all this pressure on Paralympians who are already dealing with their own personal struggles, and at the same moment, they're representing an entire nation of people who have their own level of suffering. And you can go country by country by country and have the same discussion. There's always going to be issues there that need to be dealt with. And I think that's just part of, I don't know, our responsibility as the disabled community is, we kind of get to carry the burden with us wherever we go because one, our disabilities are often so visible, and two, we know what it's like to be forgotten. We know what it's like for our priorities to be swept under the rug. And so as much as we can, it is a collective responsibility, I think, to speak about this, but would love to hear your thoughts and your take. And let's start with Mark.
I don't necessarily think it's the participant or the athlete's role, because I guess they want to go home, right? They can't go home if they raise too much hell about their own government. I was very happy that Russia wasn't invited for what they're doing in Ukraine. That was encouraging. But I given a platform, so there's a role, I guess. But damn, who wants to compete for Sudan and then go back to Sudan when there's so much genocide there, or whatever country. I think really the responsibility for the speaking out and trying to get some change in those countries comes from politicians and corporations. The corporations like tourism, like whatever industries they have in those countries, just not to trade with them. Try to shut down their economies, because if their economies are shut down, then that takes away the money that the dictatorship or whatever is suppressing everybody with, or using to power their killing machine. It's the best I got.
Nah, I think what you said was spot on. I remember, I believe it was Charles Barkley who said, he's not a role model. And, you fast forward from the time he said that to LeBron James saying, like, he feels like it's his duty to be a hero or a role model. And I think that on one hand, having the burden placed on you, where this is where I think Charles was coming from, as an athlete to push people to the limit, holding that is a weight that you didn't necessarily ask for, right? But then when you ascend to the top of that mountain, you reach a pinnacle that the reason why most people get involved in sports is because they saw somebody do it before them and they saw how they excelled and how they may have made it out of an impoverished situation, and that there's some freedom in that. Now, here In the US, that's a luxury for us, but in other countries, it just isn't that because lack of resources, no facilities, and again, going back to many countries, um, don't allow uh, some women to even participate in sports. I think it was Saudi Arabia that just up until recently, maybe, in recent times, I would say, 2012 Olympics was the first time I think they had a woman being representative, but they can't compete in swimming or anything that's going to show off their body. We read an article about a gentleman who's the second tallest man on earth. He's 8 foot 1 inches, and he participates in seated volleyball during the Paralympics. And everyone's cheering him on, which rightly so. I mean, you're doing your thing as an athlete, and it's cool. But then, if you scroll further down in the article, it brings up about, well, in the same country, a man was accused of stealing sheep from a Revolutionary Guard, and his fingers were amputated because of that iniquity, right? That theft. And yet you're sending people to the games where there are plenty of people who have suffered amputations, right? There's a bit of hypocrisy as we cheer one thing on, but yet we allow them to be involved when there's atrocities going on. So that's difficult. Who has to bear the brunt of that? You know, if you have a platform and you feel that you can do it and return back to your home, or unfortunately have to migrate to another country, then by all means, do it. You have to be, wise and make sure that, you're counting the cost as much as you possibly can. But I think it can swing either way. Harley, how about you?
For me, I don't see it as a burden for my disability of, being able to be the voice for others that maybe they don't know how to be a voice. Maybe they're shy or they get nervous. I worked for an independent living center once, and the way I got my job was I walked in, said, "You got a problem, and I got a solution." And that's how I got the job I got today, too, even though it's a volunteer position. I went to a town hall meeting and I told them flat out, "Y'all got a problem, and I got the solution." And so um, I'm very vocal about things. And for me, it's an honor to be able to help others, to be a voice, to be an advocate. And for me, since I've been given the gift of my voice and my compassion and the ability to negotiate with others, it's great. And when people ask me, what got me into advocating, and it's like, I'm 49 years old. I've been working with the elderly and people with disabilities since I was 5. And for me, it's just who I am and what my life has always been about. And for those that are in a lesser situation than it is my duty to stand up for them. And I'm grateful that I'm able to do that. And uh, when I was a father's rights advocate, I was, telling people I'm an advocate for the people, created by the people.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
No, you good, John. Go ahead.
Hard. I mean, that is straight on. And it's that confidence that really helps push others to the next level. And kind of on that, and what Mark was saying earlier, Corey, you and I had this conversation as we were planning. When I first read this question, I was like, Corey, is this really fair? And like that is a lot of pressure. And even this gentleman I spoke about before, um, Fadi Al-Deep, he himself, when he was interviewed by the press, he's like, yeah, this is too much. This is too much responsibility. And yet he's doing it, right? Like he is successfully doing it. He's successfully representing 11 million people. And that just goes to show, and I was telling Corey, like, Corey, your insistence on us asking the question like this, it kind of revealed an ableist perspective in myself. Like, wait, yeah, it is kind of, if we are able to do it, it is a responsibility worth having. And just because we have a disability, just because we have additional vulnerabilities, doesn't mean that the default mode is this shouldn't be a burden for the disabled community to carry. This should be for someone else or for a more able group or a safer group. Because at the end of the day, who understands the issue better, right? And who understands the stakes better than us? They don't. And so it's either us or it's no one, or maybe our family members or people who know us. But we are more powerful than. But obviously, it can be an extremely dangerous situation, and the people who are able to speak, they are incredibly courageous. Justina, we would love to hear your thoughts on this question. You're on mute. Oh, Justina left. Let's go to Brandon. Let's have your thoughts on this question.
So, yeah, that's a really, really hard, tough question to even try to unwrap corners on, because, again, everybody in the world knows what the problems are, but nobody's doing anything to solve them or to stop them. It just keeps on going. The politicians and the corporations, we can go back to that. Those are some of the biggest problems because they're the ones that perpetuate this cycle and keep this ball rolling just the way they like it to pad their pockets. It's just disgusting. Yeah, people like in the Olympics, absolutely, they have a global stage. Everybody's watching. But if they speak out against it and they go home, then they're executed in the street and hung with their gold medal on their toe. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Like, we need to. It's so easy to say, but we need to find a way to, Star Trek our system. We need to globalize everything and make everything on one cohesive system, and everything will be all good. But as we know, Star Trek doesn't happen till like 24 something, so it ain't gonna happen on our watch.
Yeah, no, that's true. And to your point, it's I think there's so much irony, in this question. Like, to what John said, when you think about it, you're just like, okay, you're asking the disenfranchised to speak out, or people who already are kind of suffering or bearing the weight. But what happens here in America, right? The news or the media will go into a broken neighborhood, and usually there's somebody that's what speaking out, right? Because the people at the top aren't doing it. And if they are, a lot of times they're just going into these neighborhoods for political gain. But somebody has to rise amongst the ashes and say, hey, listen, this is what we're going through. And yeah, you may threaten me, you may threaten my benefits and what have you. I may get fired from this job and what have you. And unfortunately, the who out of all of us who steps up just emboldens and empowers us. While at the same time, you just have to be reasonable, rational, and definitely careful. Tahira, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's the responsibility of all of us to speak out about injustices that are happening that we know about, or it could be in our country and also in other countries. Some participants, probably some of them have are probably not very political and have spent their lives just kind of trying to achieve this one goal, and others may not be that sympathetic. But I would say it's the I would also say something kind of what Harley was saying, that it's an opportunity, I think, more than a burden, to speak out for people who are vulnerable. And I personally feel responsible because I'm vulnerable now, and other people are vulnerable in different ways. So I feel like we have to support each other in not being victimized or taken advantage of because of disabilities, whatever they may be, political, economic disabilities. So I would say it's everyone's responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, and that sounds right. And you know, talking about the threat to one's life, at the end of the Paralympics, the runner from Kenya, Rebecca Cheptegei, was doused in flames by her ex-boyfriend, and died. And just a couple days ago, the ex-boyfriend who doused her in flames, who also got burned himself, he also passed away. I mean, it's just, you look at a situation like that, and you're like, well, these are Olympians, like able-bodied Olympians. Maybe, and you hear, I heard about this, I don't know, a couple years ago, I learned about it. Like people get to the top of their sport, but they're still living out of their cars, or uh, just because you excel at one thing does not mean you have everything else figured out or that your life is perfect or that you have that stability. So I think there's also a growing awareness that these our athletic idols, our sport role models, really need a lot more support from their own, communities, from their own governments, from their own sport authorities, getting paid more, talking about women's sports compared to men's sports. There's a lot of inequities that need to be resolved, and it is an opportunity, and it affects both the disabled and the able-bodied community, to a large extent in the same similar categories for most of the time. But again, I think it just hammers home the point that whatever we look at these amazing athletes and these amazing endeavors, it should just remind us, well, how are we going to tackle all the various challenges we face in our own lives? And how are we going to take those podium moments, in whatever form they come? We really need to take advantage of them to shed light on broader issues than just the one accomplishment. And Justina was able to rejoin. So,
Yeah,
Justina, would love to hear your thought on the second question before we finish up.
everything that the Paralympians experience, especially overseas, to point out some of the accessibility issues, they might not have gotten certain treatments at hotels, but they were still able to show up and do the job that they were hired to do. A lot of them are still in school. Some of them don't have accolades that many of us think, but because of the fact that they're playing a sport, that gives them a platform and that gives them a voice. And whatever problems that could help the disability community, even overseas, I feel that they should definitely speak about it. Ask questions on how changes can be made in order to be better for the next 4 years, for the next group of Paralympians that's coming up. And us as a group of individuals living with disability, we should be able to stand behind them and rally on and get them the best assistance possible, along with ourselves. Continue championing on every type of assistance that anyone living with a disability may need.
That's
And
cool.
yeah.
That's real cool. And I think that really sums it all up in terms of uh how do we compete for the goal? You just continue to champion on. You don't stop. You may start off the race a little bit slow, but just pace yourself and keep going, and you'll be able to accomplish some of the goals that you set forth. And sometimes there's this kind of duality thing going on. On one end, the pressure gets put on athletes to speak out and say something, but at the same token, hopes and people's dreams are placed on them unnecessarily. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but like when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl last year, I was livid. I'm like, man, like, what are you doing? Why did you drop that ball? This and that and the third, and I had to like dial it back. I'm like, yo, bro, you know how hard they train. You've played sports. You know that you don't win everything, and that's quite fine, and that's quite okay. It's the fact that you're putting your best foot forward and you're being courageous and you're putting effort behind the things that you value the most. And if somebody can look at you and take something from it and it inspires hope and it inspires change, then by all means, we need to go about it. So, I love everybody's sports analogies from wheelchair rugby, throwing yourself at the problem and trying not to tip over, going for gold. Baseball, you start off on first base. You don't know how far the ball will go, but you should swing the bat. Regardless, adaptive surfing, be courageous. You know what I mean? Because the water in the tide of life is going to get high. You know what I mean? You can either surf or fall off your board. It really does take a team effort to care for not only us who depend on people, but also caring about other people's needs outside of your own inaccessibility issues by speaking up and doing things like, hey, I may have a car, but this person doesn't have a car. Let me talk about transportation issues and teach people how to get back into the community and be active. And it can be like a rodeo. So what you need to do is hold and hang on. But, the difficulty is not to place the burden on the already vulnerable, knowing that there's possible consequences that they could be facing. The real thing is the opportunity isn't a burden. And when you can do it, just try. You never know how or what type of change you're going to affect because of it. And what I love about the Paralympics at the end of all of it is that they shed light on global inequities. And I'll just share a quick story I thought about how when the Paralympics happen, they got to make their facilities accessible. And in 4 years, you prepare for some games that are only going to last a few weeks, yet you make it accessible very quickly. It's a revenue gainer, it's entertaining, and it's attractive. But the inequity is when all of that accessibility goes away, what are the cities still doing for the rest of the people who are remaining? And I think that's the key takeaway is that the job is not done. You got to keep pushing forward. And, we're not done yet. But again, thank you guys so much for participating in our More Than Walking video podcast discussion.
Stay tuned in and join us next month and sign up for the More Than Walking newsletter at morethanwalking.com to learn about the topic we will cover next. And if you're in the US and eligible to vote, register to vote because your voice matters.
That is a fact. So until then, remain encouraged, stay hopeful, and above all else,
keep adapting.
That's right. And don't vote for evil. That's all I'm saying. Leave it at that.
That's all he's saying. I know.
That's all I'm saying.
That's cool.
We're not endorsing any candidate. Just
that's right. Just
don't vote for
don't go insane.
It's a good policy.